I am Elena, 42 years old, and I stood paralyzed in my own laundry room, listening to my husband weep over the fact that he hadn't yet managed to steal enough of my money to leave me for his other family. Before I tell you how I left him penniless and facing jail time, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I love seeing how far our community reaches. It was a Tuesday in late October. The kind of crisp, gray Connecticut afternoon where the leaves are already rotting on the ground and the air smells like impending winter. I wasn't supposed to be home. I was supposed to be in the dentist's chair, getting a crown replaced, but their equipment had malfunctioned, and they canceled while I was 5 minutes away. I drove home, thinking about making a pot of tea and surprising Mark. He worked from home on Tuesdays, usually locked in his study analyzing market trends. I pulled my Volvo into the garage, careful not to hit the recycling bins. I didn't use the automatic opener, I just slipped in through the side door because I didn't want to startle him. The house was silent, except for a strange, heaving sound coming from the kitchen. I walked through the mudroom, stepping softly out of habit, a habit I'd developed over 10 years of trying not to disturb Mark's genius at work. As I neared the kitchen archway, the sound resolved into distinct, jagged sobs. My heart hammered against my ribs. Was he sick? Did someone die? I took a step forward, ready to rush in and comfort him. Then I heard his voice. It was thick with tears, but loud. He was on speakerphone. I can't do it anymore, Mom. I just can't. I froze. My hand hovered over the light switch. Hush now, Mark, a voice crackled back. It was Linda, my mother-in-law. Her voice wasn't shrill, it was soothing, conspiratorial. You have to be patient. You can't just walk out now. I miss them, Mark cried, a sound so raw it almost made me pity him. Sarah sent me a video of the twins this morning. They're walking, Mom. They're walking and I'm here in this mausoleum with Elena. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. Twins? Sarah? I know, honey, Linda cooed. I saw them last month, remember? They are beautiful. But think about the plan. You leave now, you leave with nothing. That prenup is ironclad, but the joint accounts aren't. I pressed my back against the cold wall of the laundry room, clutching my purse so hard my knuckles turned white. She's so boring, Mom, Mark sobbed, blowing his nose. She's like a piece of furniture. I look at her and I feel nothing. I want to be in Austin. I want to be with my real family. And you will be, Linda said, her tone hardening. But not until you secure the capital. You said she's trusting. You said she doesn't check the statements. Transfer the next tranche from the trust dividends. Get the $500,000, Mark. Then you can file. Sarah can wait another month if it means setting you up for life. I feel like I'm suffocating, he whined. You are a good father doing what is best for his children, Linda said. Just wash your face. She'll be home at 5. Play the part. I didn't scream. I didn't storm in there and throw my purse at his head. A cold, terrifying clarity washed over me. It was like a switch flipped in my brain, turning off the wife who loved him and turning on the woman who managed a $2 million estate. I silently backed out of the mudroom. I stepped back into the garage, eased the side door shut, and got into my car. I didn't turn the engine on until I had rolled the car down the driveway in neutral. My hands were shaking so bad I could barely grip the steering wheel. I drove 2 blocks away and pulled into a cul-de-sac. I pulled out my phone and opened our banking app. There it was. A pending transaction from 30 minutes ago. Not a transfer, but a purchase. $1,200. United Airlines. First class to Austin, Texas. He wasn't just cheating. He was building a life on my dime, with his mother's blessing. I drove to the Target parking lot. It's a cliché, I know. The suburban wife having a breakdown in a Target parking lot. But I needed somewhere anonymous, somewhere with noise and people, Because the silence in my car was starting to scream at me. I parked between a minivan and a cart return, turned off the engine, and just stared at the red bullseye logo on the storefront. 10 years. I met Mark when I was 32. I was the quiet girl, the one who inherited a lot of money and responsibility when my parents died in a car crash. I was lonely. I was a target. Mark was charming, ambitious, and seemingly successful. He drove a BMW, wore tailored suits, and talked about synergy and growth sectors. It took me 2 years of marriage to realize his success was mostly smoke and mirrors. His startups failed. His investments tanked. But I was there. I was the safety net. "We're partners, Elena," he would say, kissing my forehead. "My win is your win." But there were no wins. Only my inheritance filling the holes he dug. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror. My eyes were red, but dry. The woman staring back at me wasn't the piece of furniture Mark had described. She was the sole trustee of the Holloway family trust. My parents had been smart. They knew I was soft-hearted. They set up the money in an irrevocable trust. I could access the income, but the principal was locked down tight. Mark had always hated that. He'd spent a decade trying to find cracks in that legal armor. "Why doesn't your dad trust me?" he'd asked once, early on. "It's insulting that I have to ask you for capital." "It's just for protection, Mark," I had apologized. God, I was stupid. I pulled out my phone again. The banking app was still open. I scrolled back. There were the business dinners at steakhouses in Austin. $400. $600. There were the hotel stays for conferences. The Four Seasons. And then, the cash withdrawals. $200 here. $500 there. Small enough not to trigger a fraud alert, frequent enough to bleed us dry. I tapped on the joint savings tab. This was the account where my dividends were deposited, the liquid cash we lived on. Balance, $1,450,000. This was the capital Linda was talking about. This was the money he needed to steal before he left me. If he transferred that money to an offshore account or a shell company, recovering it would be a nightmare. He could claim it was a bad investment, a business loss. He could wash his hands of it and run to Texas. My fingers hovered over the screen. I wanted to drain the account right now. Move it all to my personal savings. But I stopped. If I moved the money now, he'd get a notification. He'd know I knew. He'd panic. And a panicked rat bites. He might have other assets I didn't know about, or he might try to destroy documents at the house before I could get to them. I needed help. I needed a shark. I dialed a number I hadn't called in years. "Stevens and Associates," a crisp voice answered. "I need to speak to Arthur Stevens," I said. "This is Elena Holloway." "Mrs. Barrett," the receptionist corrected me, using my married name. "No," I said, my voice sounding strange to my own ears, harder, deeper. "It's Holloway. Tell him it's an emergency regarding the trust." 2 minutes later, Arthur's gravelly voice came on the line. He had been my father's lawyer for 40 years. He was 70, smoked cigars despite his doctor's orders, and had a heart made of granite. "Elena? Is everything all right?" "Mark has a second family in Austin," I said. I didn't sugarcoat it. I didn't cry. He and his mother are planning to embezzle $500,000 from the joint operating account and then divorce me. There was a silence on the other end. Then, the sound of a pen clicking. "Are you safe?" Arthur asked. "Yes. I'm in a Target parking lot." "Good. Stay there for a minute. Listen to me carefully, Elena. Do not confront him. Not yet. I want him out of my house, Arthur. And we will get him out. But if you confront him now, he plays the victim. He hides assets. We need to lock him down. Did he say when he's leaving? He bought a ticket to Austin for next Tuesday. A week from now. Okay. That gives us time, Arthur said. I'm going to prepare an emergency motion to freeze marital assets, but I can't file it until we serve him, or he gets tipped off. We need to secure the trust first. I'm going to temporarily restrict the flow of dividends into the joint account. We'll claim it's an audit. He'll notice, I said. Let him notice. Tell him it's administrative. Blame me. Everyone hates lawyers. Arthur paused. Elena, I need you to go back to that house and eat dinner with him. Can you do that? My stomach churned at the thought of sitting across from him, watching him chew, watching him lie. I can do it, I said. You need to get his devices, Arthur continued. We need proof of the infidelity and the premeditated theft. The courts in Connecticut don't look kindly on financial dissipation for a mistress. If we can prove he spent marital funds on this, Sarah, we can claw that money back from his share. If he has a share. He has twins, I whispered. He told his mother he has twins. Then he's desperate, Arthur said. Kids are expensive. He's going to make a mistake. Watch him. Document everything. And Elena? Yes? You are your father's daughter. You control the purse strings. Never forget that he is just an employee you are about to fire. I hung up. I sat there for another 10 minutes, breathing in through my nose and out through my mouth. I looked at the Target entrance, watching women walk out with diapers and groceries. Normal lives. Mark thought I was furniture. He thought I was a boring, naive checkbook. I started the car. I checked my eyes in the mirror again. They were clear. I wasn't furniture. I was the bank. And the bank was foreclosing. I pulled into the garage at 5:15 p.m. I made sure to use the automatic opener this time, letting the mechanical grind announce my arrival. I walked into the kitchen with a grocery bag in my hand, a decoy. I had stopped to buy a bottle of wine and some fancy cheese, the kind Mark liked. He was sitting at the island, his laptop open. He looked up, and for a split second, I saw the panic in his eyes before he smoothed it over with that practiced, charming smile. Hey, babe, he said, closing the laptop. You're home early? I thought the dentist was today. Equipment failure, I said, setting the bag down. My voice was steady. I was acting, performing the role of the oblivious wife. They canceled on me. I went for a drive, did some shopping. Ah, bummer, he said, standing up to kiss me. I forced myself not to recoil. His lips touched my cheek, damp and familiar. This was the man I had slept next to for a decade. The man I had nursed through the flu. The man who was currently plotting to loot my life savings. He smelled like coffee and the expensive cologne I had bought him for Christmas. You look tired, I said, studying his face. Rough day? Exhausting, he sighed, running a hand through his hair. Markets are volatile. And this merger in Austin is killing me. The due diligence is a nightmare. Austin, I repeated. The word tasted like ash. Is that still happening? Yeah, actually, he said, walking to the fridge to get water. I might have to go down there next week. Just for a few days. To finalize the deal. Of course, I said. You work so hard. I started unpacking the cheese. I bought a Gruyere. We can have it with the Pinot. He watched me. I could feel his eyes assessing me, looking for cracks. You're sweet. I have a headache. I might just skip dinner and lie down for a bit. He was avoiding me. He probably felt guilty, or maybe he was just afraid he'd slip up. Oh, poor thing, I said. Go rest. I'll bring you some tea later. As soon as he went upstairs to the master bedroom, I moved. I knew his routine. He never took his iPad to the bedroom, he left it charging in his study. He thought he was safe because he had a passcode on it. But I knew the passcode. It was 0812. Our wedding anniversary. August 12th. The irony was almost funny. I slipped into his study. It smelled of old paper and leather. His iPad was on the dock. I woke it up. 0-8-1-2, it unlocked. My heart was racing so fast I thought I might pass out. I didn't have much time. I went straight to the Photos app. He had been smart enough to delete recent photos from the main roll, but he wasn't tech-savvy enough to empty the recently deleted folder. And there they were. Photos of a house. A ranch-style house with a big porch. Photos of a woman, Sarah. She was young, maybe late 20s. Blonde, athletic, smiling with a kind of radiance that made my stomach hurt. And the babies. 2 of them. Identical boys with Mark's nose and Mark's chin. I scrolled further. A photo of a document. A birth certificate? No, it was a lease agreement. Tenant, Mark Barrett. Occupant, Sarah Jenkins. I pulled out my own phone and took pictures of everything on the screen. I was shaking, but I forced my hands to be steady. Click. 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 Then I went to his email. There was a thread with Linda. Subject, timeline. I opened it. Linda, have you initiated the transfer yet? I found a great lawyer in Houston who handles high-asset divorces. He says if you move the domicile to Texas, we might get a better split. Mark, working on it. She's clueless. I'll do the transfer on Friday when she goes to her yoga retreat. I almost dropped the iPad. Friday. He was going to move the money this Friday. I quickly closed the apps, wiped the screen with my sleeve to remove fingerprints, and placed it back on the dock exactly as I had found it. I went back to the kitchen, poured myself a glass of wine, and drank half of it in one gulp. Then, his phone rang upstairs. I heard the muffled sound of a video call. Hey, Mom, I heard him say. I crept to the bottom of the stairs. Did she suspect anything? Linda asked. Her voice was tinny coming from the speaker. No. She bought cheese, Mark scoffed. She's talking about the garden. She has no idea. Good. Stick to the script. Be nice to her. You catch more flies with honey. I know. It's just hard looking at her face when I know what's waiting for me. It'll be over soon, sweetie. I went back to the kitchen and started chopping vegetables. I chopped them violently. Mark came down 20 minutes later, looking refreshed. Feeling better, he lied. Who were you talking to? Just Mom, he said effortlessly. She sends her love. She wants to know if she can come by for tea tomorrow. She says she hasn't seen you in ages. Linda coming here? To my house? After what I just read? That would be lovely, I said, turning around with a smile that felt like it was carved out of wood. I miss her. Great, Mark said. So, about this Austin trip. I'll need to book the flight tonight. Can we put it on the joint card? My corporate card is maxed out from the last vendor payments. Sure, I said. Do what you need to do. Thanks, babe. You're the best. He hugged me from behind. I held my breath. I felt his arms around me, arms that had held another woman, held secret children. Arms that were trying to strangle my financial future. Mark? I asked softly. Yeah? Do you love me? He hesitated. It was only a fraction of a second, but it was there. A micropause where his brain had to load the lie. Of course I do, Elena. You're my life. Good, I said, turning back to the stove. Because I'd hate to think this was all a waste of time. He laughed, a nervous little chuckle. You're weird tonight. Just the dentist anxiety, I said. That night, I waited until he was snoring. Then I got out of bed, went downstairs, and retrieved my purse. I took out an AirTag I used for my luggage. I went to his briefcase. I found the lining at the bottom, made a tiny slit with a seam ripper, slid the AirTag inside, and pressed the fabric back together. If he was going to Austin, I was going to be with him every step of the way. The next morning, Mark left early for a breakfast meeting. As soon as his BMW turned the corner, I was in my car. I wasn't going to the PI's office. I was meeting him at a diner 2 towns over. His name was Frank, an ex-cop who had done security for my father's company. Frank was already in a booth, nursing a black coffee. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. "Elena," he nodded as I slid in. "You look like you're ready for war." "I am, Frank. Did you get it?" He slid a manila envelope across the sticky table. "It wasn't hard. Your husband isn't exactly a master criminal. He's arrogant. That makes them sloppy." I opened the envelope. The first page was a credit report. Not for Mark, but for a shell company called Lone Star Consulting LLC. "He set this up 2 years ago," Frank explained, pointing a thick finger at the paper. "Registered in Delaware, but the mailing address is a P.O. box in Austin. Look at the authorized user. Sarah Jenkins," I read. "He's been funneling money into this LLC under the guise of consulting fees for your joint investments. But look at the spending." I flipped the page. The LLC account statement. Austin Fertility Center, $25,000. Methodist Hospital, $15,000. Babies R Us, $4,000. Pottery Barn Kids, $6,500. I stared at the fertility center charge. $25,000. "He paid for IVF," I whispered. My hand flew to my mouth. We had tried to have kids for 3 years. Mark had told me I was the problem. He said my stress levels were too high. He said maybe it wasn't meant to be. He had refused to go to a specialist with me. "I'm sorry, Elena," Frank said softly. "But yes. He paid for her IVF. Those twins, they were planned. This wasn't an accident. This was an orchestrated second life." Tears stung my eyes, hot and angry. He denied me a family, made me feel broken, made me feel like a barren failure, all while he was buying babies with another woman using my money. "There's more," Frank said. "The house in Austin. He didn't lease it. He bought it." "Bought it? How?" "I would have seen a mortgage." "He didn't use a mortgage. He used a hard money loan against the equity in your vacation home in the Hamptons. He forged your signature on the power of attorney." I felt the blood drain from my face. "The Hamptons house? That's my mother's house. He leveraged it. If he defaults, you lose the house. And considering his cash flow is entirely dependent on you, he is going to default as soon as you cut him off." "He forged my signature," I repeated. "That's a felony." "Multiple felonies," Frank corrected. "Wire fraud. Bank fraud. Identity theft." I looked at the photos Frank had included. High-resolution shots taken with a telephoto lens. Mark pushing a double stroller. Mark kissing Sarah on a park bench. Mark looking happier than I had ever seen him. And then, a photo that made me gag. It was Mark and Sarah at a dinner party. And sitting next to them, holding a wine glass, was Linda. My mother-in-law. "She's been down there 5 times in the last year," Frank said. "She stays at the house with them. She babysits." I slammed the folder shut. "Okay," I said. "I have enough." "You have enough to bury him," Frank agreed. "What's the play?" "He wants $500,000 on Friday," I said. "He thinks he's going to transfer it." If he touches the Hamptons' equity, you're on the hook. I know. That's why I need to stop him before Friday. But first, I looked at the picture of Linda again. I have a tea date with his accomplice. Frank smirked. Be careful with her. She's the mastermind, Elena. Mark is just the greedy idiot. Linda is the one pulling the strings. I know, I said, sliding out of the booth. She thinks I'm a pushover. She thinks I'm the naive little orphan she can manipulate. I threw a $20 bill on the table for the coffee. She forgot that orphans learn to survive, I said. Send the digital files to my lawyer. Immediately. I was back home by noon, arranging cookies on a platter. I chose the cheap, store-bought cookies, not the bakery ones Linda liked. It was a petty act of rebellion, but it felt good. Linda arrived at 1 p.m. sharp. She drove a Mercedes that I had paid the lease on for her 60th birthday. She walked in with a cloud of Chanel No. 5 and an air of superiority that she tried to mask with grandmotherly warmth. Elena, darling, she exclaimed, pulling me into a hug that felt like being squeezed by a boa constrictor. You look, well, a little pale, perhaps? Just busy, Linda, I said, pulling away. Come, sit. Tea is ready. We sat in the sunroom. The autumn light was harsh, exposing the dust motes in the air. So, Linda started, sipping her tea. Mark tells me he's off to Austin again. He works so hard for this family. He certainly does, I said. He's very dedicated. He is. He worries about you, you know, she said, leaning in. Her eyes, so much like Mark's, bored into mine. He worries about the finances. With the market being so unstable, he feels like your assets aren't being optimized. Here it comes. The pitch. Really? I asked, feigning innocence. The trust is doing quite well, actually. Oh, I'm sure it is, she waved a hand dismissively. But the restrictions, they are so archaic. Mark mentioned that if you were to move some of the principal into a joint investment vehicle, something more aggressive, you could double your returns. He has a brilliant opportunity in Texas. Tech startups. Tech startups, I repeated. Like the one he invested in 5 years ago? The one that went bankrupt? Linda's smile twitched. That was bad luck. This is different. But he can't do it without your capital. And frankly, Elena, as his wife, don't you think it's time you showed him some real trust? Keeping everything separate, it hurts him. It makes him feel like a hired hand. I never want Mark to feel like that, I lied. Then sign the transfer, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. Surprise him. Move that $500,000 he was talking about into the joint account. Let him manage it. It would save your marriage. Is my marriage in trouble? I asked, widening my eyes. Linda paused. She realized she might have overplayed her hand. No, of course not. But, men need to feel useful. They need to feel like providers. Letting him grow your money would do that. I'll think about it, I said. Excuse me, I need to use the restroom. Of course, dear. I stood up and walked out of the room. I knew Linda's habits. She never took her phone to the bathroom, she left it on the table. And she was technologically illiterate. She didn't use Face ID, she used a simple 4-digit code. I had seen her type it in 100 times. 1-9-5-5, her birth year. I walked loudly down the hall, opened the powder room door, then closed it hard so she would hear the click. Then I took off my shoes and sprinted back to the sunroom entrance on my tiptoes. She was looking out the window, admiring my garden, or perhaps calculating how much the land was worth. Her phone was on the coffee table, right next to the cookie platter. I moved like a ghost. I grabbed the phone. I retreated into the hallway, out of her line of sight. 1-9-5-5, unlocked. My hands flew. I went to her messages. The thread with Mark was at the top. Linda, working on her now. She's resistant, but I think I can guilt her into it. Mark, just get it done. Sarah is freaking out about the mortgage payment. Linda, don't worry. We'll have the money by Friday. Just keep telling Elena you love her. I scrolled up. Photos. Linda holding the twins. My beautiful grandsons. Linda and Sarah drinking mimosas. So much better than that dreary Elena. I felt a surge of bile in my throat. Dreary. Resistant. I quickly forwarded the most incriminating screenshots to my own number, then deleted the sent messages from her phone so she wouldn't see them. I crept back to the sunroom entrance. I placed the phone back on the table exactly where it was. Then I walked back to the powder room, flushed the toilet, washed my hands, and walked back to the sunroom with my shoes back on. Sorry about that, I said, sitting down. Linda smiled. She hadn't noticed a thing. As I was saying, Elena. It's about partnership. You're right, Linda, I said, picking up a cookie. It is about partnership. And honesty. I think I will have a surprise for Mark on Friday. Her eyes lit up. Oh, that's wonderful. He will be so thrilled. I think he will be shocked, I corrected her. Shocked in a good way, I'm sure. We'll see, I said. More tea? When she finally left an hour later, I stood in the driveway and watched her Mercedes disappear. Goodbye, Linda, I whispered. Enjoy the car while you still can. Mark came home that evening, looking more stressed than before. The pressure was mounting. Friday was 2 days away. He needed that money. He walked in and tossed a small gift bag on the counter. For you, he said. Saw it and thought of you. I opened it. A silk scarf. It was pretty, but I recognized the brand. It was from the airport duty-free shop. He hadn't seen it and thought of me. He had panic bought it while waiting for his luggage. Thank you, I said flatly. So, he said, loosening his tie. Mom said you two had a good talk. We did. She mentioned, you might be open to the investment idea? He couldn't help himself. He was desperate. Mark, I said, leaning against the counter. I looked into the joint account. We have plenty of cash. Why do you need another $500,000 right now? The market is, as you said, volatile. His face darkened. The charm evaporated, replaced by the ugly narcissism that lived beneath the surface. Why do I need it? Because I'm trying to build something for us, Elena. God, why do you always have to question me? It's humiliating. I'm not questioning you, I'm asking for a business plan. If this is a tech startup, show me the prospectus. You wouldn't understand the prospectus, he shouted. You don't understand business. You just sit here in this house that I manage, spending money that your daddy left you. You've never earned $1 in your life. The words were designed to hurt. To make me feel small. To make me retreat. I manage the household, I said calmly. I manage the staff. I manage the bills. Bills? He laughed, a cruel, barking sound. You pay bills with magic money. I'm out there hustling. And when I bring you a golden opportunity, you treat me like a child asking for allowance. He walked towards me, invading my space. He used his height to intimidate me. You don't trust me, he spat. That's the problem. After 10 years, you still treat me like a stranger. Trust is earned, Mark. I have earned it. I have given you everything. You've given me an airport scarf, I said, gesturing to the bag. He swept the bag off the counter. It hit the floor with a soft thud. Fine. You know what? Forget it. Keep your money. Hoard it like a dragon. But don't come crying to me when I stop trying. When I stopped caring. He stormed out of the kitchen and slammed the door to his study. I stood there, my heart pounding. This was the gaslighting. He was trying to make me feel guilty, trying to make me bend so I would sign the transfer just to make the fighting stop. But I wasn't going to bend. I waited 10 minutes. Then I walked to the study door. I didn't knock. I opened it. He was on the phone, his back to me. He hung up immediately when he heard the door. "What?" he snapped. "I need to use the printer," I said. "Mine is out of ink." "Now?" "Yes. I have a recipe I want to print." He rolled his eyes and stepped aside. "Make it quick." I walked to the printer. But my eyes went to his desk. There, under a stack of folders, was a notarized document. The corner was sticking out. I printed my fake recipe. As the paper churned out, I accidentally knocked the stack of folders over. "Oops," I said. "Don't touch anything," he yelled, rushing over. But I had already seen it. It was the loan document for the Hamptons house. And right there, at the bottom, was my signature. It was a good forgery. He had practiced. But the loop on the E was wrong. "Clumsy," he muttered, snatching the papers up and shoving them into a drawer. He locked the drawer. "Sorry," I said. "I'll leave you alone." I walked out with my printed recipe. I went upstairs to the guest room. I had started sleeping there, claiming I had a cold. I locked the door. He had forged my signature. That wasn't just betrayal. That was prison time. I texted Arthur. He has the forged papers in his desk. Top drawer. We need a warrant or a court order to seize them. Arthur replied instantly, motion filed. We serve him tomorrow. Be ready. Tomorrow. But I had one more call to make tonight. It was 10 p.m. Mark was downstairs, drinking scotch and probably texting Sarah. I sat on the edge of the guest bed. I had Sarah's number from the PI's report. My hands were shaking again. This was the wildest card I had to play. If Sarah was a co-conspirator, if she knew about me and didn't care, then calling her would blow my cover. Mark would know immediately. But if the PI was right, if she was just a victim. I dialed the number. I blocked my caller ID. It rang 3 times. "Hello?" A voice answered. Young, tired, distracted. I heard a baby crying in the background. "Is this Sarah Jenkins?" I asked. I used my professional voice. "Yes? Who is this?" "Hi Sarah, my name is Jennifer from Liberty Mutual Insurance. I'm calling regarding a policy review for Mr. Mark Barrett. You are listed as the secondary beneficiary on his life insurance." I made that up. But it sounded plausible. Oh, Sarah's voice softened. Right. Did something happen? Is the policy okay? Everything is fine. We just have a discrepancy in the file. Mr. Barrett listed his marital status as widowed. We just need to verify that for our records. Silence. Long, heavy silence. Yes, Sarah said finally. His wife. Elena. She passed away 3 years ago. Cancer. I closed my eyes. He had killed me. He had literally killed me off to build his new life. I see, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the rage boiling in my blood. And you and Mr. Barrett reside in Austin? Yes. Well, he travels back to Connecticut for work. He has to settle the estate. It's been very complicated. Elena's family fights him on everything. I can imagine, I said. He's a good man, Sarah said, sounding defensive, as if I had accused him of something. He's been through so much. Being a single dad to our twins, and dealing with the grief. He sounds very resilient, I said. He is. He's coming home next week. For good. He said he's finally selling the Connecticut house. Selling the house, I repeated. My house. Listen, Sarah said. Can you call back tomorrow? One of the boys is screaming and Mark hates it when I deal with administrative stuff without him. Sarah, I said. I dropped the insurance agent voice. Mark isn't a widower. Excuse me? Mark's wife isn't dead. Elena didn't die of cancer. Who is this? Her voice spiked with fear. Is this a prank? I'm Elena, I said. Silence. Absolute, terrified silence. The baby crying in the background seemed to get louder. That's not funny, Sarah whispered. I know it's not. I'm calling you from the house in Connecticut. The house he says he's selling. Mark is downstairs drinking scotch. He isn't settling an estate, Sarah. He's trying to steal it. You're lying, she said, but her voice was wavering. She was remembering things. The missed calls. The hidden phone. The vague business trips. Ask him, I said. Ask him to show you the death certificate. Ask him why his mother visits you but never mentions his wife. Linda says. Sarah started, then stopped. Linda says you were an angel. Linda is a liar too. Listen to me, Sarah. I am not your enemy. I am going to destroy him, but I don't want to destroy you or those children. But you need to know the truth. He is lying to both of us. I don't believe you, she sobbed. Mark loves me. Check your bank account, Sarah. Ask him about the Lone Star Consulting LLC. Ask him where the money comes from. I took a deep breath. I'm serving him with divorce papers tomorrow. And I'm filing criminal charges for fraud. If you are listed on those accounts, you could be an accessory. You need to protect yourself. She was crying now. Real, heartbroken tears. I'm sending you a photo right now, I said. To this number. I switched to text and sent her the selfie I had taken with Mark just last week, at a charity gala he forced me to attend. Timestamped. We were smiling. He was wearing his wedding ring, the one he took off when he went to Austin. Check your messages, Sarah. I heard a gasp on the other end. Oh my God, she choked out. The ring. I'm sorry, I said. And I meant it. But now you know. I hung up. I sat in the dark. The alliance was formed. Or at least, the seed was planted. Mark thought he had 2 women under control. By tomorrow morning, he would have none. The morning after I called Sarah, the house felt different. It was quieter, but it was the silence of a held breath before a scream. I woke up at 6 a.m. Mark was still asleep in the master bedroom, likely dreaming of his Austin ranch and his new life. I made coffee. I showered. I put on my armor, a charcoal gray pencil skirt, a silk blouse, and the diamond studs my father gave me for my 21st birthday. I wasn't the gardener today. I wasn't the housewife. I was the CEO of my own liberation. When Mark came down, he looked hungover. His eyes were puffy, and he moved with a jittery energy. Today was the day. In his mind, today was the day he bullied me into signing over the $500,000. Morning, he grunted, pouring coffee. He didn't look at me. Did you think about what we discussed? The investment? I leaned against the granite island, sipping my tea. I did, Mark. I thought about it all night. He perked up, a predatory gleam entering his eyes. And I think you're right, I said. We need to make a change. We can't keep living like this. He exhaled, his shoulders dropping. Thank God, Elena. You're finally seeing reason. Look, I'll call the bank. We can do the wire transfer by noon. I'll handle the paperwork. Actually, I said, setting my mug down. I already handled the paperwork. You did? He looked confused, then delighted. You transferred it? Not exactly. I walked over to the counter where I had placed a thick manila envelope. It wasn't the bank transfer. It was the package Arthur Stevens had prepared. Here, I said, sliding it toward him. He ripped it open, expecting a check or a confirmation number. Instead, he pulled out a stack of legal documents titled Petition for Dissolution of Marriage. He froze. He stared at the words, his brain struggling to process the shift. What is this? He whispered. It's a divorce, Mark. I'm granting your wish. You wanted to be free? You're free. He looked up, his face twisting from confusion to rage. You're divorcing me? Over an argument about money? Are you insane? It's not about the money, Mark. Well, not entirely. He slammed the papers down. You can't do this. I'm the one who makes the decisions here. You think you can just kick me out? I'll take half the house. I'll take half the trust. I'll bleed you dry, Elena. You can try, I said calmly. But you should probably check your phone first. My phone? Check your notifications. He pulled his phone out of his pocket. He frowned. Then he tapped the screen furiously. Then he went pale. What did you do? He hissed. I called the bank at 8 a.m., I explained, my voice steady. I informed them of the impending divorce. I froze the joint checking account. I canceled your supplementary credit cards attached to the trust. I also revoked your power of attorney regarding the Hamptons property. You cut off my cards? They aren't your cards, Mark. They are my cards that I allowed you to use. And frankly, your spending habits have become unsustainable. I have a flight to Austin in 3 hours, he screamed, spit flying from his lips. I have meetings. I have expenses. I guess you'll have to fly coach, I said. If you can pay for it. He lunged at me. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. But he stopped himself, his fists clenched at his sides, his face purple. You bitch, he seethed. You selfish, frigid bitch. No wonder he stopped. He almost said it. No wonder I cheated on you. No wonder you what, Mark? I challenged him. Go on. Say it. He didn't. He was too much of a coward. He grabbed his briefcase. Fix this, he threatened. Call the bank and unfreeze those accounts, or I swear to God, Elena, I will make your life a living hell. I will tell everyone you're mentally unstable. I will tell the courts you're financially abusing me. I'll see you in court, Mark, I said. He stormed out. He slammed the door so hard the windows rattled. I watched him go. I watched him get into his BMW, which was leased in my name, and which I planned to repossess next week. My phone buzzed. It was Arthur. Did he take the bait? He's gone, I typed back. He's heading to the airport. He thinks this is just a temporary temper tantrum. He thinks he can fix it from Austin. Perfect, Arthur replied. Let him run. The trap is set. I slumped onto a kitchen stool. My adrenaline was crashing. But I didn't cry. I pulled up the Find My app on my phone. The little dot representing Mark's briefcase was moving down I-95 toward the airport. He was going to Sarah. He was going to try to salvage his real life. He had no idea that I had already burned that bridge down, too. The next 48 hours were a masterclass in watching a man's ego disintegrate in real time. I didn't leave the house. I sat in my command center, my kitchen, with my laptop, phone, and a fresh pot of coffee. I felt like a general watching troop movements on a map. Mark made it to Austin. I saw the dot land at the airport. I saw it move to a car rental agency. Then, the notifications started. Alert, transaction declined. Ava's car rental. Amount, $450. Alert, transaction declined. Ava's car rental. Amount, $450. He tried twice. I smiled. He must have been standing at the counter, the line forming behind him, sweating in his suit. He eventually had to use a debit card from a small personal account he kept, an account that I knew had less than $2,000 in it. He drove to the house. Their house. The ranch-style home paid for with my mother's legacy. I imagined the scene. He walks in, expecting Sarah to comfort him. He expects to spin a story about banking errors and crazy Elena. But Sarah already knew. I didn't hear from Sarah directly, but I saw the fallout. That evening, Mark tried to check into the Four Seasons in downtown Austin. Why is he at a hotel? I wondered. Why isn't he sleeping at the house? Because Sarah had kicked him out. Alert, transaction declined. Four Seasons Austin. Amount, $800. He couldn't afford the Four Seasons anymore. The dot moved again. It went to a Motel 6 on the outskirts of the city. Transaction approved, Motel 6. Amount, $89. I laughed out loud. The man who drank $200 scotch and wore Italian loafers was sleeping in a roadside motel next to a highway. Then, my phone rang. It was Linda. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. And again. Finally, I picked up. "What have you done?" she shrieked. Her grandmotherly mask was completely gone. She sounded like a banshee. "Hello, Linda," I said pleasantly. "To what do I owe the pleasure?" "Mark called me. He's in a motel." "You cut off his money? You stranded your husband in Texas with no resources? That is abuse, Elena. I am calling the police." "Go ahead," I said. "Tell them that I stopped paying for my husband's mistress and his illegitimate children. I'm sure the police will be very interested." Silence. Dead silence. You know," she whispered. "I know everything, Linda. I know about Sarah. I know about the twins. I know you've been visiting them. I know about the Lone Star Consulting fraud. I know about the forged loan documents for the Hamptons house." "Elena, wait," she stammered, her voice shifting instantly from aggression to desperation. "You have it all wrong. It was a mistake. Mark was vulnerable. That girl, she trapped him. I was just trying to manage the situation so you wouldn't get hurt. You took photos with the twins, Linda. You captioned it, 'My Real Family.' I was forced. Mark made me." "You are a liar and a thief," I said, my voice cold as ice. "And by the way, I'm canceling the lease on your Mercedes. The tow truck will be there tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Make sure you get your golf clubs out of the trunk." "You can't do that," she wailed. "How will I get to the club? What will people think? Tell them you decided to walk. It's good for your health." I hung up and blocked her number. The next day, Mark flew back. He didn't even stay the weekend. Sarah must have completely shut him out. He bought a one-way ticket back to Connecticut, economy class, middle seat, back row. When he arrived at our house, his key didn't work. I had changed the locks an hour after he left for the airport. I watched him from the upstairs window. He banged on the door. He kicked it. He looked disheveled, his suit wrinkled, his hair a mess. "Elena! Open the damn door." I opened the window. "Go away, Mark," I called down. "This is my house," he screamed. "You can't lock me out." "Actually, I can. I have a temporary restraining order. Police are on their way. If you're still on the driveway in 5 minutes, you'll be arrested for trespassing." He looked at me, his eyes full of hatred. "You think you've won? You haven't won anything. We have a mediation on Tuesday. My lawyer is going to destroy you. I'm going to take half of everything, Elena. And then I'm going to laugh while you rot in this empty house. Bring your lawyer, Mark, I said. Bring your mother, too. I want an audience. He spat on the driveway, got back into his taxi, and left. He thought the mediation was his playing field. He thought the law worked on fairness for the spouse who earned less. He thought he could argue that he contributed to the marriage by managing our life. He didn't know that I wasn't bringing a divorce lawyer to the mediation. I was bringing a forensic accountant and a prosecutor. Tuesday arrived with a thunderstorm. The sky was black, rain lashing against the windows of the law firm's conference room. It was fitting. I sat at the long mahogany table. On my right was Arthur Stevens, looking like a stone gargoyle in a pinstripe suit. On my left was Frank, my PI, and a forensic accountant named Dr. Eris. The door opened. Mark walked in. He had cleaned himself up. He was wearing his best navy suit, a fresh haircut, and an expression of arrogant victimization. Linda was with him, clutching her pearls, looking frail and persecuted. Behind them was their lawyer, a man named Mr. Blight, a shark known for getting big settlements for cheating husbands. Elena, Mark nodded, not making eye contact. He sat opposite me. Linda sat next to him, refusing to look at me. Let's make this quick, Mr. Blight started, opening his briefcase. My client, Mr. Barrett, has been illegally locked out of his marital home and cut off from marital funds. We are demanding immediate reinstatement of his access, a lump sum of $500,000 for legal fees and living expenses, and a 50-50th split of all assets, including the Holloway Trust, which has been commingled with marital funds. Arthur didn't even look up from his notepad. Denied. Excuse me? Blight bristled. This is a mediation. We are here to negotiate. We aren't here to negotiate, Arthur said, his voice gravelly and deep. We are here to offer Mr. Barrett a plea deal. Plea deal? Mark laughed, a high-pitched, nervous sound. This isn't criminal court, Arthur. Stop with the theatrics. I want my money. Your money? I spoke for the first time. I stood up. I picked up a remote control. Mark, you always said I was boring, I said, walking to the front of the room where a large screen was mounted on the wall. You said I didn't understand business. So, I prepared a presentation. A business review of our marriage. I'm not watching this, Mark sneered. Come on, Mom. Sit down, Mr. Barrett, Frank said. Frank was big, ex-military. His voice carried weight. Mark sat. I clicked the remote. Slide 1, the assets. This is the Holloway Trust, I began. Valued at $2.1 million. Inherited. Protected. Separate property. I clicked. Slide 2, the leak. And this, I pointed to a graph with a sharp red line plummeting downward, is the Lone Star Consulting account. Over 3 years, $450,000 was siphoned from the joint operating account to this shell company. That was for business development. Mark shouted. Consulting fees. Really? I clicked. Slide 3, the business. Photos appeared on the screen. The ones Frank had taken. Mark at Babies R Us buying 2 cribs. Mark at the Austin Fertility Center. The lease agreement for the house in Austin. Since when does a tech consultancy require IVF treatments and double strollers, Mark? The room went silent. The only sound was the rain against the glass. Linda went pale, clutching her purse tighter. Mr. Blight, Mark's lawyer, looked at the screen, then at his client. Mark, what is this? It's taken out of context, Mark stammered. I was helping a friend. A colleague. A colleague named Sarah Jenkins? I clicked again. Slide 4, the family. A full-screen photo of Mark holding the twins. He was beaming. The caption from Sarah's private Instagram, which Frank had hacked, read, "Daddy's home. We missed you so much." "You have 2 children, Mark," I said softly. 2 sons. "And you paid for their conception, their birth, their clothes, and their roof with my money. With the money my parents left me." Mark slumped in his chair. He looked small. Defeated? No, not yet. He was cornered. "Okay," Mark said, his voice shaking. "Okay, fine. I made a mistake. I fell in love. It happens. It's not a crime to fall in love, Elena. We can figure this out. I'll pay back the money from my share of the house." "Your share of the house?" Arthur chuckled. It was a dry, terrifying sound. "You don't have a share, son. You have negative equity." "What?" Arthur slid a document across the table. "You forged Mrs. Barrett's signature on a home equity line of credit for the Hamptons property. You took out $300,000. That is a felony. Bank fraud. Wire fraud. Identity theft." Mark looked at the document. He looked at his signature, the shaky loop on the E. "We have spoken to the district attorney," Arthur continued. "They are very interested in this case. Especially given the scale of the theft." Linda suddenly stood up. "I didn't know," she cried out. "I didn't know about the forgery. Elena, you have to believe me. I thought he was just borrowing it." "Sit down, Linda." Mark snapped at his mother. "No." Linda turned on him. "I'm not going to jail for you. You told me it was legal. You told me Elena signed it. You knew," I said to Linda. "You encouraged him. Secure the capital, you said. She's just furniture, you said." Linda burst into tears. Ugly, heaving sobs. "But they weren't for me. They were for herself." "This is a disaster," Mr. Blight muttered, closing his briefcase. "Mark, I can't represent you if you've committed felonies that you didn't disclose to me. I'm stepping down. You can't leave me." Mark screamed. "I'm paying you." "With what?" Blight asked. "Your wife's money?" Blight walked out. Now it was just us. Me, my team, and the 2 ruins of my family. "Here is the deal," I said. I placed a single sheet of paper in front of Mark. "You sign this. It grants me an uncontested divorce. You waive all rights to the house, the car, and any spousal support. You accept full responsibility for the debt on the Hamptons house. And you agree to a repayment plan for the $450,000 you stole." "And if I don't?" Mark whispered. Then Frank hands that file to the FBI agent waiting in the lobby. "You'll leave here in handcuffs." Mark looked at the paper. His hands were trembling so hard he could barely hold the pen. "But, what about Sarah?" he asked weakly. "What about the kids? How will I support them?" "That brings me to my final slide," I said. I clicked the remote one last time. The screen went black. Then, a video call window popped up. "Connecting." Mark's eyes widened. "Who is that?" The screen cleared. It was Sarah. She was sitting in a living room, the living room Mark had furnished with my money. Her eyes were red. She was holding one of the babies. "Sarah?" Mark breathed. Sarah looked at the camera. She looked at Mark. Her expression wasn't love. It was pure, unadulterated disgust. "Don't speak to me," Sarah said. Her voice came through the conference room speakers, sharp and clear. "Sarah, baby, listen." Mark stood up, moving toward the screen as if he could reach through it. "They're lying to you. Elena is crazy. She's twisting everything. She showed me the death certificate you faked, Mark, Sarah said. She held up a piece of paper. It was a crudely photoshopped obituary. Elena Barrett, beloved wife, 1982 to 2021. I hadn't seen that before. Frank must have found it on his laptop. Seeing my own fake obituary gave me a chill. You told me she died of cancer, Sarah continued, tears streaming down her face. I mourned her. I lit candles for her. I told our sons their guardian angel was watching over them. And all this time, you were going home to her? Sleeping in her bed? It was complicated. Mark pleaded. I did it to protect you. I couldn't tell you the truth because I knew you wouldn't understand. Understand what? That you're a con artist? Sarah shifted the baby on her hip. You told me you were a successful investor. You told me the money was yours. But you were stealing from a woman you lied to for 10 years. Sarah, please, Linda chimed in, stepping toward the screen. Think of the boys. Mark is a good father. He loves those boys. Sarah looked at Linda with a coldness that matched my own. And you? You sat at my table. You ate my food. You held my children. And you knew. You looked me in the eye and lied every single time. You are a monster. Linda recoiled as if slapped. I'm leaving, Mark, Sarah said. My brother is here with a truck. We're moving out. The landlord, the real landlord, not your shell company, has been notified. You can't take my sons. Mark yelled. I have rights. Try to enforce them, Sarah said. I spoke to a lawyer this morning. You committed paternity fraud. You committed financial fraud. You won't get within 500 feet of us. Sarah, wait. Goodbye, Mark. I hope she puts you in jail. The screen went black. Mark stood there, staring at the blank monitor. The silence in the room was absolute. His double life hadn't just collided, it had annihilated itself. He turned to me. His face was stripped of all pretense. No charm. No anger. Just a raw, pathetic emptiness. Are you happy? He whispered. You destroyed everything. My kids. I'll never see them again. You destroyed it, Mark, I said. I just turned on the lights. I pushed the paper and the pen toward him again. Sign it. He looked at Arthur. Arthur nodded grimly. He looked at Linda. She was sitting in the corner, sobbing into her hands, defeated. Mark picked up the pen. He signed. He signed away the house. He signed away the money. He signed away his dignity. Get out, I said. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. You froze my accounts. I have no car. I have nowhere to live. Linda has a basement, I said. And I hear she's looking for a roommate since I took her car back. Mark looked at his mother. Linda looked up, her mascara running down her face. I can't take him, Linda wailed. My condo board doesn't allow long-term guests. And without the allowance from Elena, I can barely afford the fees. Figure it out, I said. You're a team, remember? Mark looked at me one last time. I loved you once, Elena. In the beginning. No, you didn't, I said. You loved the safety. You loved the checkbook. You never saw me. And now? Now you'll never see a dime of my money again. I turned to Frank. Escort them out. I didn't let him walk away completely free. Mark signed the divorce papers, which kept him out of prison for the moment, but Arthur and I had a contingency plan. The plea deal we offered was for me not to press charges personally. But bank fraud? That's a federal crime. And banks have their own investigators. When Mark admitted to the forgery in that room, on a recording that Frank was legally making, he sealed his fate. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my garden. The leaves were gone, the trees bare, but I felt a sense of spring. My phone buzzed. It was a news alert from the local paper. Local businessman arrested in fraud scheme. I clicked the link. There was a photo of Mark, looking haggard, being led out of his mother's condo in handcuffs. Mark Barrett, 45, was indicted today on multiple counts of wire fraud and identity theft. Authorities allege Barrett forged loan documents and embezzled funds. I didn't feel joy. I didn't feel glee. I felt relief. It was the feeling of a heavy weight finally being lifted off my chest. The system worked. Karma worked. I scrolled down to the comments. User 123, I knew this guy. Always acted like he owned the place. Turns out he was broke. Neighbor Sue, his mother is just as bad. She's been trying to borrow money from everyone in the condo complex. I put the phone down. Linda had been socially executed. In our tight-knit community, word traveled fast. The country club revoked her membership due to unpaid dues, which I used to pay, and conduct unbecoming. Her friends stopped inviting her to bridge. She was alone in her condo, with a son facing 3 to 5 years in federal prison. As for Sarah, I had thought about her a lot. Was she really innocent? A week after the confrontation, I received a letter. No return address, postmarked from Oklahoma. Inside was a cashier's check for $12,000. And a note. Elena, I sold the jewelry he gave me. I sold the designer bags. I sold everything he bought with your money. This is all I could get. I know it doesn't cover what he stole, but I can't keep anything that came from him. I'm sorry. I truly didn't know. Sarah. I held the check. $12,000 against $450,000. It was a drop in the bucket. But the gesture, it meant something. I tore the check up. I didn't need the money. Sarah was a single mother of twins, starting over in Oklahoma with nothing. She was a victim of Mark's sociopathy just as much as I was. I wrote a letter back to the P.O. box she had used in the past. Sarah, keep the money for the boys. They are innocent in this. Raise them to be better men than their father. Elena. The divorce was finalized in record time. I got everything. The house, the full trust, the retirement accounts. I sold the big house. It was too big, too full of ghosts. I walked through the empty rooms one last time. The kitchen where I found him crying. The study where I found the forgery. The bedroom where I slept alone for years. I didn't feel sad leaving it. I felt like I was shedding a skin. I bought a penthouse in the city. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Modern. Sharp. My own. I hired a new financial team, people I vetted myself. I started learning about the markets. I stopped being the passive beneficiary and became the active manager of my own fortune. One afternoon, I ran into Linda at the grocery store. It had been 6 months. She looked terrible. Her hair wasn't dyed, the gray roots were showing. She was wearing a coat that looked threadbare. She was buying generic brand soup. She saw me. She froze. I looked at her. I was wearing a tailored red coat, looking better than I had in years. Elena, she whispered. Her eyes darted around, seeing if anyone was watching. Elena, please. I'm struggling. Mark's legal fees, they took everything. Could you, for old time's sake? She held out a hand. A beggar's hand. I looked at the woman who had called me furniture. The woman who had plotted to steal my legacy. I'm sorry, Linda, I said loud enough for the woman behind us to hear. I don't carry cash. And I don't support people who help their sons commit felonies. I walked past her. I didn't look back. The last I heard, Mark took a plea deal for 2 years in minimum security. He calls Linda collect. She complains to everyone that he ruined her life. They deserve each other. It's been 2 years now. I'm sitting on my balcony, overlooking the city skyline. I have a glass of wine in my hand, a bottle I bought with my own investment profits. I didn't just survive Mark. I thrived because of him. His betrayal woke me up. It forced me to stop being the quiet, agreeable girl my parents raised and start being the formidable woman they intended me to be. I started a foundation called the Second Chance Trust. We provide legal and financial aid to women who have been victims of financial abuse and fraud in their marriages. I work with forensic accountants and lawyers to help other Alinas find the hidden accounts, trace the stolen assets, and reclaim their lives. I met a man recently. His name is David. He's an architect. He has his own money. He has his own life. On our third date, I told him, I have a trust. It is ironclad. You will never touch it. If we get married, the prenup will be thicker than a phone book. He didn't get angry. He didn't call me unromantic. He laughed and raised his glass. Good, he said. I respect a woman who protects her empire. We're taking it slow. I'm not looking for a savior. I saved myself. Conclusion. So, to everyone listening, especially the women who think it's unromantic to talk about money or my husband handles the finances, please, wake up. Love is beautiful. But control over your own life is essential. Don't be the furniture in your own home. Be the owner. Be the CEO. If you find your husband crying in the kitchen, don't just hand him a tissue. Check the bank statements. Check the phone. Because sometimes, the tears aren't for you. They're for the life he's mourning because he hasn't figured out how to steal it from you yet. Trust your gut. Protect your assets. And never, ever let anyone make you feel guilty for being the one holding the checkbook. I'm Elena. I'm worth $2.5 million now, and every single cent of it is mine. Thanks for listening. Stay safe, stay smart, and check those credit scores.